First and foremost, I want to welcome you all to this conversation. I'm glad that you chose to be here. The second thing is, before we do anything, this is about more than a collaboration, right? It's about understanding partnerships and what go into them to make them meaningful and successful. And these giants who I'm sitting next to are going to unpack that. But this is also a very significant week for collaborations. We're going to unpack it more in detail, but I'd be remiss if I didn't start with just giving a shout out. Number one, I want to give a shout out. Earlier this week, you may have seen that StockX and the Pistons announced our jersey patch deal and had a big to-do downtown. It's a massive collaboration. I want to give a shout out to Jerry and Alicia and both teams from StockX and the Pistons for pulling that together. Congratulations.
We did things.
And then, of course, we wouldn't be here without the hours and months of behind-the-scenes partnerships, of pulling things together, of last-minute drops, but then fixing them to make sure that y'all don't even see that anything dropped with my brother Dion, Pencil, the whole BFF situation. Congratulations on launching yet another amazing BFF.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, brother. All right, so who better to talk about collaborations than these individuals? All right, we're going to unpack today. If we're successful, we will have talked a little bit about what are the components of a great collaboration that make it more than just a collab. If we're successful, we will have talked about some specific examples about how you can actually create successful collaborations and what to look out for. And if we're successful, we will have given the microphone to you for a few minutes to actually unpack and ask some questions. That said, you know who we are. I just want to get a quick, if you are able, show of hands or shout out, whatever it is. How many of you are in the footwear, fashion, retail industry? Okay, great. What other industries do we have here? How many of you are entrepreneurs? How many of you are doing both maybe a corporate job and entrepreneurship?
Shout out to you.
Okay, beautiful.
You guys, the side hustle question.
That's right. How many of y'all are from Detroit? All right, where else are we from? Call it out. Yeah, I understood every single one of those places. It's phenomenal. Well, welcome. So happy to have you all here. A lot to learn. So look, when we talk about collaboration and success, we talk about a few components. We talk about community and education. We talk about brand, and we talk about culture. Those are words that seem simple and get used just fluidly in corporations and outside of corporations. I figured without making any assumptions, what we want to start with is in the spirit of inclusion, let's just unpack what each one of those things actually means. All right, so Dion, I'm going to start with you actually. Why don't you, maybe help us to understand when we say community and education, what the heck are we actually talking about?
I mean, I feel like taking one step back before we even go that deep is like, what is a student? Because I feel like, we think student is you come to a school and you learn inside of a building, but continuing to be a student is what really impacts education and community, because we always have to continue to evolve and change. So to me, it's how much do you want to continue to learn as a student to then impact the change that we need to make inside of the community, which then helps us form the education. Education from like traditional model of just going to school to learn a subject, to me is dying, right? Because as you said, everyone in here is trying to do other things, which means you have to continue to learn. So the bridge between education and community in today's world is so important because that's what we really need to focus on. So I see community and education as like a perfect intersection that in today's world we can do whatever we want, right?
Respect.
There's no definition of what it actually is.
Yeah, appreciate that. Alicia, can you tell us a little bit about the brand side of things?
Yeah, for sure. I think the definition of brands as it started, I think it's changed over time. I think it started as just a product identifier. Here's a widget, this is what it does. Today's version of a brand, I actually read somewhere that it's the combination of facts about the brand plus emotional attachments. So we're now, whatever we put into the world as a brand becomes how you form a perception, whether it's true or not, about who we are. So I think we have to be very conscientious of that because we put it into the world, and that's today's world, that's what's happening. So yeah, it's bigger than we think now, and we're now even influenced by other people, how they feel about a brand, influences how we feel about a brand. So it's a very interesting time to be marketers.
Yeah, it is. I don't know what to believe anymore. I gotta be honest. I'm like, who is this stranger who's telling me to buy this shampoo for my hair?
But you bought it.
I did buy
You did,
it.
you
I bought
bought it.
two.
You
Yeah.
bought it.
Okay.
You bought
Looking
the
good,
brand.
it's good.
You know, down here. All right, Jerry. Culture. I mean, probably the most overused and leveraged word out there.
That's a big
You're
word.
an expert at culture. What does it actually mean in the context of dope collabs?
Yeah, I think culture is something that we all know and love. For me, culture is something that is, those thoughts, those feelings, those, universal truths that are associated with communities that we know and love. For instance, like Damien started with "What up, though?" That's Detroit culture. We know to say "What up, though?" back. I was at this event yesterday, and the song came on, and everyone came out. They didn't know each other, and they all started ballroom hustling to the same song. They all knew the same moves. Everybody knew everything, but they never met. That's just part of culture. And so those are just those universal truths that we all know when you're a part of it, whether it's sneaker culture, whether it's the city you're from. I mean, I think it's culture is that connector between all of us.
Appreciate that. Very helpful. All right, so we got a baseline understanding now of what these 4 words mean. But what we are proposing on this panel today and in this conversation is that all 4 of those components are important. But just like a random influencer might tell you to buy a random shampoo, like we want to convince you of why they're actually important. So, Alicia, can you kick us off, right? We talked about community, culture, education, and brand. Why is that even important in a collaboration?
So maybe I feel like there's so many different ways you can answer this. So maybe I'll just take the sports lens because that's my lens. So, today's modern NBA is so digital and so far reaching. So when I started 20 plus years ago in basketball, it was basketball purists that we marketed to. Today, let's say, 13 years ago, take MySpace out. Some of you don't even know what that is. Take that out. When social media platforms really took off, think about it. Our players, we have a very young NBA team. So our players were 10, 11 years old. That means our fans were 10, 11 years old. So for their whole formative years, they've been exposed to a whole different world, which means they have access. So unlike some of us who grew up in Flint, so what you saw was what you saw at home, and as far as you could go was about 15 minutes. That was your universe and your world. And so now, as marketers, we have to remember that our fans actually consume everything in the world, which means not just basketball purists enjoy basketball, because they have access to it now. Because basketball purists seek out basketball. Now we're in your algorithm. Now you see us. So you may not even like basketball, but you love fashion, you love music, you love art, and you saw what the Detroit Pistons, the sports team, is doing in those spaces. And so now we found a way as marketers to pull you into our ecosystem. And so you're coming into the basketball ecosystem for a totally different reason than our original fan from 20 plus years ago. And that to me is a little bit of the evolution of marketing right now for us.
Appreciate it. You got thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things she said to double down on is access, right? The Detroit Pistons, such a strong brand. When you say bringing people into your ecosystem, it's bigger than what's actually being played on the floor. Because there's so many things that we never had access to, which tie into education, right? So like the uniforms, who designed that? Who designed the campaign? All of these things we're not aware of, or a lot of people aren't aware of. The Pistons are allowed to actually give you access to information by just watching what's on the court.
Yeah.
So I think that's super cool because it's another way to look at what access and education is through something that's a traditional sport, right? So we typically don't see the game and be like, oh man, wow, like who designed the commercial?
For sure.
Or who designed the floor? Or who designed anything,
Yeah.
right? And that's actually happening right in front of your face while you're watching these guys run up and down the floor.
Well, so one follow-up point.
Yeah.
So basketball, to me, is just the product.
Right.
The actual brand is the Detroit Pistons. So it's literally everything else outside of just basketball. And to your point, we've got 55 creators in the Pistons marketing team that are building all of this. A lot of them are here today.
Some of them are here right now.
Shout out marketing team. But so there is a different level of that connectivity, but that's the differentiator.
Yeah.
One's the product, one's the brand. The brand's bigger.
Definitely an important differentiation, and I'd be remiss if I didn't call out the importance that all 4 of us know of those 55 creators, those people who are doing global brand, those educators, them also reflecting the culture and the community as
Yeah.
well, because that end product We may not know who's designed it always, but we know when it went wrong, for sure, right? When it wasn't the right folks
went
designing
wrong.
stuff. So we done seen that a few times. All right, so y'all, we defined these words. We heard a little bit about why they're important to have each one of these components in a successful collaboration. But the next thing I want to understand is, like, how do you actually go about building a collab that has all these components? When you and I were talking, I think you hit on some really important points around values that I'm sure this audience would love to hear that and anything else you want to share about how you go about doing this.
Yeah, so I think shared values are important in collaborations and partnerships in general. And I think here's my reason why is those relationships are rooted in a high level of trust. And good partnerships are rooted in that. And so when you have shared values and beliefs, you get to the higher level of trust faster. So, Jerry's team and my team, StockX Pistons, we have a huge partnership, which I think we're going to talk about. But when I got to tell Jerry the logo can't go there, it's got to be a little bit smaller,
Right.
he at least knows I'm coming from a good place because we have a high level of trust. But it might need to be a little smaller. Okay, all right. So that's what shared values does. It allows your partnership to have just a little more efficiency in the relationship space.
Yeah.
And then also for you to create around things that are, you have your baseline, and if you have a partner that you really don't share beliefs with, you're like, all right, check the box. When you have partners that share the belief of wanting to do bigger and better, I think you said you want the cool and the hype. So we're trying to deliver that. It's important that we have shared values because then we can go above and beyond the asset sheet.
But keep me honest though, shared values doesn't necessarily mean we always gonna agree.
Oh, no.
Right?
No.
Like you could still disagree, have some dissension, right?
But it
And-
allows
yeah.
us to work through that quicker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the only thing I would add is it also allows us to align on what success looks like. And so if you don't have those shared values, you don't have the understanding, we might be trying to get different things out of the partnership. And if that's what we don't going into it, then that's not going to work. And so once we can align those shared values, we can also align what success looks like and becomes a advantageous partnership for each one of us.
Yeah, right on.
And I mean, hold on.
Please.
I think it's super important to drive one point home that you just said.
Yeah.
We see people run through the end line of this amazing partnership, but I could personally tell you, because we all been together for a while, it's not as easy as it looks, right? Like, it's partnership, but the reality is it's a relationship.
Yes, it
And
is.
if anyone's been in a relationship, sometimes the shit ain't fun.
It's
And
sometimes.
sometimes, I'm just being honest, right?
Yeah.
To get to the end line, there's times you bump heads. It's time like, what, I don't really want to listen to what you're talking about right now, right? So, I mean, I want people to think about that because collaboration is such a sexy thing in the industry.
Yeah.
Until you actually have to work on it to get it through to the finish line. And sometimes it doesn't get to the finish line.
Yeah.
Even if you have shared values.
Totally.
Right? So like, we don't want to make it sound so sexy that sometimes it's not dark, because
Right.
sometimes it is dark,
It is.
Yeah.
right? And we just have to figure out how to push through.
And it takes time.
It takes time.
And
It does
sometimes
take
you have
time.
a start and a stop.
Yep.
Jerry and I can attest to that. This is a few years in the making.
Exactly.
We got to the finish line and we didn't cross it, and we had to start over. But
And sometimes you got to get couples there. Sorry, that's the wrong panel. Okay, sorry. But no, real talk. The analogy around a relationship makes total sense, and it's not just it's the stop and start, but it's like I'm gonna use a relationship analogy. My wife comes to me and she's like, "How this look?" We at a place now where I could be honest, and she know I'm not coming for her, but I actually have her best interest in mind, and vice versa, right? Like early relationship stage, we hadn't built that kind of trust. And so to your point, it takes time. But like leaning in on this a little bit, Jerry, like in your life, not necessarily talking about these organizations unless you want to, you've done a lot of partnerships. You were, heavy on the multicultural, like marketing side very early on and with a pioneer organization. So you've seen a lot of partnerships. Have you ever like gotten to a place where you realize, on paper, this looks like a great partnership. I really wish this could happen, but then you start peeling back that layer and realize there ain't shared values? And if you have had that, what did you do? Did you try to repair it? Like, did you walk away?
Yeah, so first I gotta get to that stage where I can have that conversation with my wife, so I might go ahead and talk to you about that. Okay. But yeah, I think in a previous life, I worked for a company called Muscle Milk a long time ago, and one thing that we were built on was community. We went out and we built relationship with all the high school kids, with all the college kids, and we really built that brand from the bottom up. I had to start the first ever marketing department in Michigan for Muscle Milk. And then it's a little different kind of situation here, but we were acquired by a company that did not share our values. And so what that meant was, instead of going out and building with the community, what they asked us to do was go to retail stores and gas stations and things like that to get a quick sale, as opposed to building with the community.
Got it.
And what ultimately happened with that was the brand ended up declining and declining and declining because they weren't investing in the community. They were just going for the quick sales. And so as far as the resolve goes, we tried, we talked, we had those conversations, but at that point, just transparently, they didn't listen. And they devalued the brand so much that they then had to sell it at a loss because they did not go into it trying to build with the community. So I think there's a lot of situations like that. It's not always going to be a smooth transition. But yeah, I think when it's done the wrong way, you know it, and it not only affects the community, but also affects the bottom line.
Yeah, I'm glad you made that point about both, because sometimes people will just say, oh, it was a bad look. If you check the comment section, like, we getting dragged, but like, you also getting dragged on that balance sheet and that income statement. Respect. Dion, we're talking about money, all right? Of course. You work with a nonprofit. A lot of people think nonprofit means we're not trying to make money, but we know.
I mean, it is. You're not supposed to make money.
I get it, but you got to make some money to keep the lights on, right?
Try to jam me up. Go
That's
ahead.
it. No, I'm just saying. You know, I don't know if this is being recorded, but that isn't necessarily the primary focus. But in many cases, you're working with, and I'm sure all these brands are amazing brands, but nonprofits work with for-profits. And a for-profit entity has a responsibility to return value to shareholders. And so when you're trying to find these shared values and do the things that Alicia and Jerry have mentioned, like, do you ever find any tension between the two? And how do you bring a for-profit along to understand that there are different definitions of return on investment?
I mean, there is different definitions for sure, because it can't always be driven by money, right? At the end of the day, it's always going to be about the bottom line. But both of them were saying, when it comes to community, you have to build it from the ground up. A lot of for-profit companies, for me at least, the way I approach it is like, where is the intersection that we can dive deeper into, right? So if I use the Pistons as an example, like she said earlier, arts is something that doesn't necessarily live on the court, but could live inside of the community.
Right.
So how can we open that up wider? And now we're actually doing work that we both value.
Right.
So it's not necessarily about tomorrow, short term, that we're gonna make XXX amount of money, but 3 years from now, that seed that we planted, when it grows, everyone's like, damn, how did that happen? And it's like, it happened because, we did this little thing and then grew it small by small by small. And then eventually it's like, oh, wow, you guys are making a lot of money. Like I said earlier, people see the end product. Like, oh, that t-shirt collab was sick. But you weren't around when we shot a little workshop in the community to teach you how to actually deal with the brand, where the logo should go. It should be this big, should be this small. Then 6 years or 6 months later, you see this product. And you're like, oh, wow. The conflicting part is, you run into people who are just about the bread, right? And sometimes we're not in the business of taking bad money. So you might come over here and we'd be like, you know what, we good, because we actually don't see eye to eye. And that's okay.
Can you say that again? Not in the business of taking what kind of money?
Bad money.
Bad money.
Yeah.
Right.
So you actually have said no to dollars.
Many times, because if it's not in alignment, then why are we taking the money?
Yeah.
Is it easy? Because sometimes, to be real with you, we gotta keep the lights on.
Right.
Right? If anyone knows anything about Dr. Dwayne Edwards,
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out to Doc. We'll figure out another way.
Yes, we will.
We're a design school, right? So if we're not thinking creatively on how we're gonna do things, then why are we doing it?
Yeah.
Right? Especially the position that we hold. So
Yeah.
there's just levels to it.
Yeah. Levels. I just want to make sure that we heard that, though, that all money is not good money. And I know that not all of you in this audience have the luxury of being in roles of maybe positional authority where you can just turn down money. Like, some of your bonus may depend on whether or not you get a partnership done. So I want to keep it real there too, but as you aspire, as you identify the kinds of companies you want to build and work for, this is something to keep in mind when we talk about values alignment. Okay, we're almost about to hand y'all the microphone and hear from you, so hope you have some questions that we can get through, but we've really started with this really wide, right, top of the funnel, and we're getting more specific. Each one of you have given a couple of examples. I want to really get into the nitty-gritty because the cool thing about the three of you, the four of us essentially, is that in some way, shape, or form, even well before this panel, well before this week, we've all tapped in and collabed in some way, shape, or form. And so I want to just, like, for the audience's sake, maybe unpack a little bit about what each one of those collaborations have been. And then, you know, we'll save kind of some of the beautiful stuff for a little bit later. But I want to start with you, and let's take past, kind of current, and future. And I want to start with you, Dion, to talk about maybe the partnership between PLC, StockX, and Microsoft around the draft. What was it? How'd it go?
Yeah, we did pretty amazing partnership during the draft where we brought in students from the Lions Academy, taught them design principles, went through a full day of a workshop, introduced us to some experts. Damien was one of them. But it was a really good experience because, you know, we got to do the top level work, but then we got to get into the community and touch lives.
Yeah.
And change the perception of like, oh wow, this school actually exists?
Yeah.
Oh, I can meet the guy from StockX? I never thought I could do that.
Right.
And actually get into the creases. So for us, it's now getting started because of that small work that we did during the draft.
Yeah, and I mean, shout out to y'all because I think E-Scott, right, in a matter of an hour, had students who had never designed a piece of clothing or shoe have designs, have a narrative to it that got up and presented. It's pretty dope. Like, y'all are really, like, empowering young people.
And if you get a chance to meet E. Scott, please, he'll talk your head off, so make sure you take advantage of it.
No doubt. Okay, that's past. Let's talk about current. We talked about this kind of, we alluded to the jersey patch deal. Alicia, put us on. Like, what happened this week?
We did a thing.
You did a thing?
We did a thing this week. So hopefully you guys saw it, maybe something in your algorithm. But the Pistons and StockX entered into a multi-year jersey patch deal. So shout out to, thank you, StockX. I mean, so I've been with the team 22 years. So I started at a point in time where we had there was no.
Sis, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What did you just say? How many years?
22.
Come on.
Just. And I was telling the panelists earlier, there's no height requirements to work in the NBA because they are kicked back, and I'm like trying to get in this couch. No, so what I was trying to say though is we've had a couple multi-year deals with patch partners. Won't name them, but banking partner, mortgage company, it hits a little different with a company like StockX because all the plus-ups that my team wants to do from a creative standpoint, like with Nike, we designed for 2 years for jerseys that are going to hit the court. So to have a partner that can kind of be in that with us long-term is going to be really special. Like I'm super inspired. Like there's certain moments in like longevity when you're with a company so long that you're like, oh, it's the same old thing. But now like I have a little bit of sense of inspiration. And I think that's what really good partnerships and collaborations can do. It can inspire like whole organizations. I know Jerry was saying his team sent a note that they're super fired up. Same on our side. We don't know what it means yet and what the beautiful things are going to come out of the relationship, but like we're ready. So we're excited. So hopefully you guys can go on the journey with us because we just launched it on Wednesday. Everything's blurring together, but more to come. But yeah, jersey patch partner, so it's great. And sorry, just a side note before I kick it over to Jerry, we talked to a lot of different companies. My partnerships team brought some brands to the table that I was like, oh no, you want to put what on the jersey? You know, like shout out, you know, Waste Management, but I don't want, I don't really want garbage on the team right now. Like we're trying to have an upward, so.
Misaligned values.
Misaligned values. So sometimes you do have to say, no, I don't think that's it.
That's good. Well, congratulations.
Glad we did it.
Okay, so Jerry, like you got StockX and PLC. StockX and the Pistons, but there's 3 organizations up here. So can you please do the unveiling of a partnership that y'all are the first to hear about between all 3 of us?
Yeah, I mean, so it's the now what, right? And so one thing that we want to do is be more than just a logo on the backdrop. We want to make sure that we're investing in the community and investing with our partners to build something that's sustainable. And we're doing that with PLC, with Night School, which is a, how would we say it? Like,
It's night school.
yeah, it's Night School. So it's something that we're building out, but we're working with PLC to get design students to sponsor them to come up and create things for the community that we can showcase and sell on StockX. And so, so stay tuned for more on that, but it's one of the things that we want to do in giving back to the community and not just talking about it. And the same thing when it comes to the Pistons, like we're going to have the assets on the sideline, we're going to do all that stuff, but what happens in the off season? What happens in the community? What things are we doing there? And so building out with Alicia those programming touch points to make sure that we're consistently connecting with the community and doing things on an ongoing basis. So a lot more to come, a lot more details still need to be ironed out, but a lot more to come, and we're excited about it kind of collectively as a group.
I think, just to talk a little bit about night school a little bit more. Life happens in the background. So the reason we thought night school would be really, really cool is because, like I said, life happens in the background. So some people can be in an educational institution between 9 and 5. So does that mean they can't learn or have the opportunity to learn? So night school is what we came up with, where it's like, here's an opportunity for someone who may not be able to take advantage of our traditional model of like coming here, being here for 4 weeks between this time and that time. But now you have an ability, work your 9 to 5 gig, go home, get something to eat, drop off the kids if you need to, and then plug in with us.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just, again, us disrupting what the education system truly looks like.
And keep us honest, focus on Detroit residents.
Of course.
All right.
I was going to make Alicia say that because I don't want to steal all the love.
No, it's good.
Nah,
But yeah,
it's beautiful.
It's definitely focused on Detroit residents.
Yeah, and the Pistons will be a part of some of that programming, those
sure.
those classes.
Yep.
So we're super excited to tap in. Okay, y'all's turn. All right, let's just do this, okay? Because we family here. Y'all know at every conference, somebody gets the microphone. And about 15 minutes later, they finally get to their question after they've done a damn monologue. We ain't got time for all that. We love y'all, but find us afterwards for the monologue, all right? Please.
No, don't find us after.
Okay, don't find us.
Let's
keep
keep
it real.
it short
Let's
all
keep
the
it
way
real.
around.
Okay. Do we have questions? Okay. Let's see. Do we have microphones? Okay, microphones. Okay, let's go there. Let's make them quick, and I'm just going to ask one panelist to answer each one so we can get as many in as is possible.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Reese. I'm based in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm an event curator. I have a platform called Dope Events, and we just did a festival called Pulse Experience in Charlotte. So we didn't have any sponsorships. We did have a grant. And now going forward, now that we've done the inaugural year, I was just looking for some advice when it comes to outreach and presentation, where you're looking for brands that you have found that you are aligned with. How would y'all like to see somebody approach you guys?
I can take that one. First, anytime someone reaches out to me, I want to make sure they've done their research on us and understanding kind of what our passion points are. And if we've done events before, kind of have an understanding of that. And the next thing I'm going to ask is like, what's kind of unique and different and special about your event? Like, who is your demographic? What is the audience? And kind of what community are you tapping into? And so once you have that kind of understanding of your audience as a whole, then I think we can have that conversation, that dialogue. But it is going to start with like, what is the attendance of your event? What is the vision of your event? Like, who are you trying to tap into? And making sure that those things are aligned. And then we can kind of have that conversation.
Okay, thank you.
I need to add one thing. You as the person who's pitching, one question that people miss all the time is like, what is PLC's priority for the year?
Yep.
Because you may be like, oh, I got this crazy ass idea for you, man. And I'll be like, oh, that sounds dope, but it doesn't work for me right now.
Yep.
Right? I'm not saying your product is bad. I'm just saying it's not in alignment with what we got going on. So that first question to me, even as much years I've done partnerships, I'm always like, yo, so what's your 2025 priority? They give you the answer, actually. Then it's you going back and cooking up what you can put in front of them that makes sense to what Damien just said. Everyone misses that step. People come to me all the time, yo, I want to do da-da-da. I'm like, yo, you never asked me if it makes any sense.
Yeah. I got the wrap it up B sign a little bit earlier than I thought. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take one quick question, one person's going to answer, and then they're going to close with 15 seconds of their best advice for you. And then we will be here afterwards, because lunch is next, to get all these other questions in. Okay? So I see a hand there, and boom, we got you.
All right. Well, good morning and good afternoon to everyone else. I guess it's still good morning. My name is Kwaku Brown Bonsu. I am a Ghanaian American, the founder of Medachi Foundation, Inc. I want to thank everybody on the panel because some of you folks actually helped my organization when we first started, so super thanks to you guys. The question that I have is, in this globalized world where connecting with people is at your fingertips, what is your vision for how to bridge and build new connections with with the motherland, both in what it could mean for you, for your brand, and what it could mean for those who are here now?
That's a good question. That sounds like an education question.
See how they did me, right?
Hot
Right here,
potato.
that sounds like
God.
an education question.
I mean, I feel like it's similar to the advice I just gave. It's like, I can't truly answer that until I know more about the motherland, to be honest, right? Like I need, what's the resources they need, so when we come into the community, we're actually serving it the right way. That's the first step. The vision eventually is to be able to go over there and be able to give them access to design education. What do they need? I don't know. What's the barriers that they're facing? They may face completely different barriers than we do. So I don't want to ever go into a space and be ignorant and just think just because we do this, they need to do that.
Yeah.
So for me, the first step is actually understanding where the need is, then coming back, cooking it up with the team, then having that conversation. So I hope that answers you.
And if not, he's willing to talk a lot longer afterwards. Okay? All right,
great
look,
question.
that is our time, 15 seconds each. Sister, we're going to start with you.
Yeah.
Best piece of advice on how to create collabs that go well beyond a collaboration.
Yeah. All right, well, marketers out there, I think we get put in a box and they think you just are here to do cool shit. So what I want to say to you is, we strategize, we use data, we are smart, we are revenue driving, we are brand builders. And I actually shared this with our new president of Business Ops, shout out Melanie, this past week. Creativity is intelligence having fun. So I'll say it again, creativity is intelligence having fun. When I read that, I was like, yes, we are smart, we strategize, we drive revenue. So just remember that. Don't get put in a box that you're just the one who does the cool shit. Because you're not. So creativity is intelligence having fun.
I'm gonna keep it super simple. I think it's never forget your why. Like, why do you want to collaborate with someone? Just don't do it because, like she said, it's cool shit. What's gonna hold on to it is because you always remember your why. You're connected to it. And then on top of that, remember there's levels to it. So you may be like, I want to do something with the Pistons. I'm gonna pitch you. I want to do a stock tomorrow. And it's like, you may not be ready to do anything there. And that's not an insult to you. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
It takes time to get to certain levels, right? So your why, and never think that there's not levels to get to certain things.
Love it. Jared?
Mine is going to be relationships and research. Relationships, as you said, this has been years in the making. And if we didn't have a relationship, it never would have got to the finish line. And so invest in building that. And then the research is understanding who you're going after, understanding their why and what they need to do, because that's going to help you close any deal that you want to go after. So relationships and research.
And mine is, no matter what your company's brand is, if you own a company, if you're working for a company, the most important brand is the brand of you, Inc. And so don't forget that if you do a BS collab or you sacrifice your values, that lives on. The ancestors are watching. The people who created these spaces
Not the ancestors.
are watching.
All right.
And you gotta ask yourself,
You are deep.
when the book closes and your personal brand is out there, are you proud of it? All right? With that, thank you. Enjoy the rest of BFF, y'all.
Let's get a group
Thanks,
photo.
Daniel.
Yeah.